Hey there, thanks for tuning into Duckbricks. I'm Chris, and today we are counting down some of the best LEGO items that came out this year, with this video being focused on the $20 to $50 bracket. So basically anything that is over $20 or $50 and below falls into this particular category. In the past, we've pretty much only done under 50 as a total category, but last time I felt like there were so many good $20 sets and below that I had to make its own video, which is why 20 to 50 is now its own category. And there's a lot of great stuff to cover here. And so, without further ado, let's dive into number 10 of the best LEGO sets that came out in 2023, over $20 and $50 or under.
For my number 10 pick, I'm going to go with a bit of an interesting choice here, and that is a 4+ set number 43212 Disney Celebration Train, which retails for $40 US. Now what's so special about the set? Well, this set was made to celebrate 100 years of LEGO Disney. And for $40, really, the major draw here for a lot of Disney fans is the minifigure selection. Brand new outfits from Mickey and Minnie, a brand new Peter Pan minifigure, the last one being that one that we got all the way back in the Disney Series 1 collectible minifig series, a Tinkerbell minifigure with new video-style wings, a Toy Story Woody figure, and for the first time, Moana as a LEGO minifigure instead of a mini doll. That is a pretty staggering minifigure lineup for a 4+ set, and to be honest, the set itself isn't even that bad either. I actually kinda like it, despite the fact that it is a very simplified 4+ build. The train has a really nice color scheme of dark blue and red, and yes, this is made for children. It's made for people younger than children. It's made for toddlers, basically, and for very, very young kids, so the building techniques are not anything special, but I really do appreciate the effort that really went into making this set. You have a fabric sail element for the Peter Pan and Tinkerbell section, which is definitely going to be very useful for Pirates builds, and I love how each member of the float has its own custom biome of sorts to add on to the way the train works. You have a boat for Peter Pan, you have a little Sheriff's Roundup section for Woody, and you have a bit of the mountain of Motunui and the island for Moana there, and everything just feels like it is its own distinct biome, but also a really nice way to display minifigures. And personally, I would be super curious to see if anybody in the LEGO community has made these little train sections for other Disney minifigures. I just think it's a really cute way to display figures. You have a little bit of a train, a very simplified biome, and you can just have the train keep going longer and longer. I'm sure that I'm not the first person to have thought of that idea, so to me, this feels like a great template for you to be able to build upon a set, and yeah, there definitely are a lot more larger and impressive sets on this list, but I feel like this one is just really nice and charming, and with the incredible minifigure selection and fun build, I felt like it deserved a place on the list, even if it's just number 10. And now, let's move on to number 9. And at number 9, we have a bit of a weird one, because obviously, as you can see here, there are two Batmobiles on screen, but specifically, I'm only talking about set number 76224, Batmobile, Batman vs. the Joker Chase, which retails for $48 US. Can you tell which one it is? Well, before you take a few seconds to look at it, it's the one on the left, and as you can see, these two Batmobiles are so similar, I figured I would show them off at once, because the one on the right also came in a set that came out this year, the Batcave Shadow Box, and only had one very minute difference, which was really the angle of the wings on the back, as well as a few small differences in the sides of the build itself. Otherwise, these two models are pretty much practically identical, and it's really interesting how LEGO did it basically twice. For me though, this is basically the perfect Tim Burton Batmobile. The set comes with Batman and the Joker, as it should, and I'm a big fan of the way they were able to pull it off at minifigure scale. This almost feels like a Speed Champions quality of build, right down to the action feature of popping up the machine guns from the hood itself. It is so fun and satisfying to do that on both the Batmobiles there, and overall, the profile is really nice, the flame rotates on the back, and the shaping is really excellent. Sure, the Batmobile included in the Shadow Box is admittedly better than this one because of the way that the wings are at an angle, but since that's the only difference, this is a smaller style of playset, I feel like this really deserves a place on the list for being a very solid build of the Batmobile itself. For a while, fans have been wanting a Tim Burton-style Batmobile easily purchasable as a standard Batmobile LEGO set, and finally, LEGO has made that happen. No longer is it a GWP restricted to a large-scale UCS Batmobile or locked to a large Batcave. You can actually just purchase this Batmobile by itself, and that's something I really appreciate. What I do not appreciate though, and the reason why it is so low on the list, is the price. $48, as I talked about in my individual review of the set, is absolutely ridiculous. There is no world in which this should be $48. I can maybe see 25, 30 is already a stretch, but 48 is just way too high, which honestly kind of makes me almost feel bad about putting it in this video, because yes, this video is for 20 to 50, so it is falling under the category of under $50. But oh man, that's not a good price. That is a pretty bad price, and this would be way higher on the list if the price wasn't just so bad, because the build is actually really good. It is basically the perfect Tim Burton Batmobile that you're ever going to want for the Michael Keaton Batman, and it's a really solid build. It's just way too expensive, and that's why I do struggle to recommend it, even though it is a very good build. Still, you can't deny it is very accurate to the source material, it's very fun to play with, and because of all those reasons, it does warrant a spot on this list. But on number 9, don't push your luck, Batmobile. And now let's move on to number 8. For a number 8 pick, I'm going with the LEGO Dreams Pegasus Flying Horse. This is a set that does retail for $50 US, so it barely makes its way on the list, set number 71457, but I really wanted to include it because I feel like this is a really fun LEGO Dream set and a representation of how good the villain-based sets are. The set itself stages a battle between Zoe on a small-scale flying bird as well as the massive Nightmare King's Pegasus flying horse, and the one thing I do really want to commend is that you get the excellent Nightmare King minifigure in a relatively cheap set. And yeah, $50 isn't cheap, but it's certainly not just locked to the most expensive set like most LEGO villains are, and that I really do appreciate, especially because the minifigure definitely wasn't cheap to produce with a dual molded crown and a fully rubberized cape. Now, this is a really fun looking set because it is a fully organic Pegasus style of horse, the winged horse looking very menacing, which I had no idea was going to look like this when the descriptions of these sets were first kind of released. I was kind of picturing a very friendly looking Pegasus and nothing at all like this, so I was pleasantly very surprised when I saw it was a very menacing and evil looking Pegasus, which is so entertaining to see, and I really like just how much you can do with the set itself. You can pose the Pegasus around, you can stage it in all sorts of different action features, the legs all fully articulate, and you can even remove the wings to allow the Nightmare King to detach atop a flyer of its own. The only unfortunate thing is that I do feel like this set actually does have a pretty significant design flaw, and that is that the wings are mounted to the detachable flyer, which tends to fall off if you just touch it wrong. The flyer is not attached on very securely, it really only is attached by 2 studs, and that makes it so that if you ever want to flap the wings, it is really hard to do so, and it is really annoying to actually be able to try and make those wings flap, because that's something you want to do in a set like this, flap the wings, and if you can't do that, that kind of takes away a lot of the fun. Still, you can't deny that this is a really well-built Pegasus horse. I really love the way that it is set up overall. It feels very menacing to me. The color scheme of the bone-like structure of the white just barely showing through the black fur, and even the mix of coral and magenta as highlight colors feels like a very unique and strong color scheme for a very unique villain, sort of villain vehicle or villain creature that we've gotten here, and overall, this is a really good representation of just how good the Nightmare King's faction is for LEGO Dreams. Sure, $50 might be a little bit high for this, but honestly I feel like compared to some of the other sets in the wave, it isn't that bad. And now I think it's time to move on to our next set on the list, number 7. For number 7, I decided to go with a LEGO Marvel Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 set. This is Baby Rocket's spaceship. Despite only being seen on screen for a couple of seconds, set number 76254, which retails for $35 US, is, in my opinion, one of the most charming small LEGO Marvel sets ever, mostly in part due to the design of the spaceship itself, which actually has a lot of playability to it and feels like it fits right in with a ton of other different sci-fi universes. I'm always a sucker for unique and intricate spaceship designs, and again, even though the source material wasn't really on screen for a lot of time and it doesn't even really resemble the source material that much, I honestly just really like this set for what it is, a small $35 spaceship that feels like it could belong in something like Space Police 3 or some of LEGO's own original space themes, which makes it all the more fun. Now, Baby Rocket's ship is primarily keyed orange or flame yellowish orange. My favorite thing about it is that you can really articulate all the different aspects of the set itself. The back jet boosters are mounted on ratchet joints, meaning you can put them at different angles or cause it to take off at a vertical position. You even have the option to position the front mandibles of the engines themselves, rotating them up and down based on the ratchet joints they are mounted to, and altogether, because of that, it allows you to get the spaceship in different quote-unquote poses, where it feels like you actually are having a dynamic spacecraft where you really are adjusting every single angle of the engines to adjust for its flight capacities. All in all, it's a really fun and swooshable ship. I really love the design of it, and yeah, even though the source material isn't really that important, I feel like it's just a fun LEGO set for $35. It's pretty good, and I love the recolor of the LEGO Friends raccoon with the Rocket Raccoon printing for the baby rocket. That is just so cute, and I really love its inclusion in the set. But now we can move on to number 6. At number 6, we have set number 76247, the Hulkbuster, The Battle of Wakanda, a set from the LEGO Marvel Infinity Saga retailing for $50 US, which admittedly feels a little bit high given that what you get is basically just a Hulkbuster and a few different minifigures. Now, the focus of the set is on the Hulkbuster, and the one thing I really love about this build is just how accurate it is to the source material. Sure, it's not perfect and the stance is a little bit awkward, but I really do love the curvature of the way the torso is done, from the curved elements used normally for car windscreens being used to mark the side armor of the Hulkbuster itself, to the way that this special Speed Champions piece is being used in conjunction with some of the other armor pieces to really make this character feel alive. Just the shaping of the build overall makes it one of the best Hulkbusters yet. Despite this being designed by the same designer who did the large-scale Hulkbuster, I feel like this is almost the opposite of that one. Whereas that one had really weird proportions and honestly wasn't all too great of a set, this is actually a really fantastic set with great proportions that looks just like its on-screen counterpart. Really, the only downside for me for the set is the way the set is stood. It kind of looks like it's squatting down or about to sit down just by the way the legs are bent. Unfortunately, you can't actually move the feet more than just this particular position. I guess you can kind of get it to stand on its toes, but then it becomes a lot less stable, and the reason for that is because the way the armor is set up, you can't actually move the feet forwards that much. This is pretty much the extent to which you can move it without it actually conflicting with this armor piece right here. Now, I definitely do understand why that piece was included. It definitely adds more stability to the model itself, but unfortunately because of that, the entire model does feel like it is about to take a seat or it's hunched backwards a little bit. But looking at it from the front, you honestly don't even notice. One thing I really love about the model is the fact that you actually do have full articulation in the elbows as well. So you have elbow articulation on a hinge like so, as well as hand articulation. So you can really get this in all sorts of unique and cool looking poses. And again, the armor shaping of the front torso is really impressive to me, and that is really what propelled it to be on this list. The minifigure selection is okay, featuring some Outriders, Okoye, as well as a new version of Bruce Banner, aka the Hulk. But one thing I really do like about the new version of Bruce, who I've decided to bring along for this segment of the video, is the new facial print. It really does capture the Hulk just about to burst out of him, but him saying no and wanting to stay inside, and of course, you do have a standard expression as well, which I think is alright for Bruce Banner. I definitely feel like maybe something a little closer to Mark Ruffalo could have been done, but I really love this alternate expression. You can literally see the green veins on the side of his head, so that is really cool to me, and he even has a new torso included for the set as well. Altogether, for $50 US, this is admittedly a little bit high. I definitely feel like this should have been a lot cheaper, maybe even 35 or 40. I don't even know if I could see 45. 50 does feel quite high for a set like this, so that's kind of why it's a little lower on the list. While it is a really nice looking set, I love the shaping of the armor, I love the detailing included, 50 is just a lot to ask for just a Hulkbuster basically by itself. But now I can move on to the next set. For my number 5 pick, I decided to go with set number 76420, Triwizard Tournament, The Black Lake from the LEGO Harry Potter line, retailing for $45 US. And the reason why I picked this was, well, a number of reasons. This is a set that people have been wanting for years. In fact, the last time this particular action set piece was depicted in LEGO format was all the way back in 2005, when the movie for Goblet of Fire actually released. Flash forward years later, and we finally are getting an updated version of the set, and it actually is really, really solid. With a really good minifigure selection featuring some brand new molds, as well as some new iterations of characters that we've never seen before, as well as 2 different levels, both of which can be separated from each other, forming a really nice looking underwater and overwater playset. This set made for a really fun action set piece for the play features, but also a good display piece as well. One of my favorite things about the set is the underwater layer, where I really feel like the set comes to life. Thanks to a very clever building technique, it makes it look like the minifigures are suspended underwater. Chains are dangled below them, making it look like they are hovering underwater in almost like in midair, but the illusion is only broken when you slightly rotate it around, and you can actually see some of the flex tube being used here, and adding to the illusion that as the minifigures sway in the current, it makes it really feel like they are floating underwater. This was such a clever building technique that honestly, I don't think I ever would have thought of. I built the set when it came out in March while I was filming LEGO Masters, and honestly, it was a big inspiration. I never got a chance to include it, but it was just such a really cool thing to build a LEGO set and learn a new building technique through the process of building the set itself. The way it's constructed is also really nice, and I love the color gradient being used, from the dark blue rocks being colored in dark blue for the first time, moving upwards to the teals and sand greens of the underwater archway. It really makes for a very attractive underwater scene, and then you go on upwards to the primarily wood dock with the whites and sand greens on the top of the clock tower there. Altogether, the minifigure selection is also really fantastic. Sleeping versions of Hermione and Ron are provided for the first time since that 2005 set, but we also get a mermaid utilizing the LEGO video hairpiece, which was a really great usage of the hair, making it seem like it's flowing underwater. And I love this tailpiece being used as well, also from LEGO video, to really add on to the menace of these underwater creatures. And it even has 2 different faces depending on which one you want to use. Now, Victor Crumb might be my favorite minifigure in the set. He is sporting a massive shark head, also from LEGO Video, as well as some other LEGO collectible minifigure series. But what's really funny is that the LEGO minifigure headpiece is literally just a giant mouth, and you can see his head on the backside. This exact print, just albeit on a different color, was reused on a LEGO City dinosaur minifigure, so clearly LEGO got a lot of good use out of this giant mouth on a minifigure, and even the hairy minifigure is pretty cool as well, featuring the flippers in tan for the first time, representing the gillyweed he has taken, with gills on the side of his head, as well as a black recolor of the Ninjago Lloyd hairpiece, which isn't new to this minifigure, but is always really nice to get. Overall, for $45, I'm actually really happy with this set as a display model and as a play model. I feel like there's a lot you can do with it. It is somewhat modular because, of course, you can separate out the 2 components if you please, and the minifigures, having 5 exclusive, unique figures, are really nice, and I feel like the extra icing on the top of the cake that really propelled the set upwards on the list. But now we can move on to our next set.
For my number 4 pick, I am going with set number 21340, Tales of the Space Age, retailing for $50 US. This is based off of a fan submission, and it is one of the most gorgeous LEGO sets ever made. Despite the relative simplicity of the build, the set depicts 4 different modules of different space age style designs, and there's something so retro and classic yet modern about this look that I really absolutely adore. Obviously here you have some sort of an eclipse going on, here's a shooting comet, a rocket taking off, and some sort of other space anomaly like a black hole being integrated here, but altogether I just feel like this makes for a very stylish display, especially on someone's wall, like I have it wall mounted on my own wall. I really love the way the colors are used to emphasize the gradient of the set itself. You've got lighter colors at the bottom, then darker colors as you transition all the way up to black, and there's a level of consistency throughout the entire set that really makes it feel like one cohesive whole. Altogether, this is one of the most interesting and classy LEGO idea sets that we've ever gotten. I love the amount of design work that went into this. It's just absolutely beautiful, and while the builds, again, are admittedly pretty simple, they are very clean in their simplicity. You really feel like you're looking at something very distinct on each of the panels, and I've definitely been loving seeing people's mocks of creating their own versions of these scenes using this exact style. It's a really fun display that champions the space age. It's the perfect name for the set, and I just love how modular it is, how you can build it with different people. I actually built this with 3 other friends where each of us built one component of it, and that was one of my fondest memories of building a LEGO set, so that is definitely why it deserves a spot on this list, and I think it really deserves a high one as well. But now we can move on to number 3.
Coming in at number 3, we come to LEGO Ninjago, and this is Sora's Transforming Mech Bike Racer. Retailing for $48, this is set number 71792 and comes with the 2 brand new protagonists of Dragon's Rising, Air and Sora, their baby dragon Ryu, as well as one of the general villains of the wave in the form of Rapton there on his speeder, which does appear quite a few times throughout the Dragon's Rising TV show itself. Of course, the brunt of the set is focused on Sora's Transforming Mech Bike Racer here. And honestly, my biggest con with the set is that it looks kinda nothing like how it looks in the TV show itself. In the show, the wheels are actually on the legs and it feels like a roller skater instead of a mech based with wheels on the side of it. But if you can set the show and set apart, and I actually will be putting out a video sometime soon of actually modifying this to make it closer to the show, I feel like this is a really good set on its own for one key reason, and that is the transformation feature. Without having to disassemble really any part of the set other than putting these swords in the back, you can transform this mech into a fully movable bike. And this is definitely a feature that I'm sure took LEGO designers a long time to figure out. It certainly is a very unique feature to have for a mech like this, and I'm really satisfied with just how simple it is to transform it. You literally just kick the legs back, and with a few minor things that you move around on the body, it's pretty much good to go. I also love the color scheme of the mech itself. Dark blue, coral, and white and gold is not a color scheme that I would have thought would work whatsoever, but somehow they've really pulled it off on this mech, making it feel incredibly iconic and eye-catching and unlike anything we've ever gotten in Ninjago before. Overall, I certainly am a big fan of how they were able to pull this mech off, especially with the transformation feature. It is a really good flagship set to really focus on for one of the new main characters, and I only just wish that they either made the TV show version closer to this, or made this closer to what we saw in the show, because it is frankly a little bit different, but I still think it is a really great set. For $48, it does feel a bit like a victim of price increases. I would imagine this set maybe was designed at $40, $45 tops, but probably $40, and then they decided to make it $48, which never is super fun, but thankfully for Black Friday this did go on sale, so you can actually pick it up for a lot cheaper if you want to, and I feel like it is almost worth the money, given that it is a very fun transforming mech and bike all in one set without requiring too much disassembly, which isn't something we've really seen from Ninjago a ton, because most times when you have to transform something like a mech to a jet in Kai's Prime Empire wave, you have to completely disassemble the build. So this was a nice breath of fresh air and a very unique build for a theme filled with different types of mech builds. But now let's move on to number 2. Another year, another Speed Champion set in the top 3 of the best sets between 20 to 50, because this is set number 76918, the McLaren Solus GT and McLaren F1 LM, retailing for an incredibly good price, for probably one of the best prices of any set on this list. $35 for 2 cars. Normally, cars cost around $25 each. So for about $10 extra, you're getting a whole new full-size car. And this is an example of some of Speed Champion's remarkable design work and pricing strategies. So the 2 cars here are done really, really well, and I definitely just want to point out the incredible shaping done on both of them. For the first car that is primarily white, black, and orange, I really love the very modern and unique angles they've managed to factor into the build. There's all sorts of different angles with air intakes on the side of the car. It feels very uniquely shaped, and it just feels very different compared to a lot of other LEGO vehicles out there. And then you compare it to the predominantly orange McLaren on the other side there, and it feels a lot more traditional, but I really love the way that the entire front of the car is sloped downwards. All in all, this entire build is a masterclass in utilizing pieces in unique ways, and in fact, a ton of brand new pieces were created for this set and for the other sets in this wave to really be able to accomplish this, which is that cheating? Maybe, maybe not. I would argue that is just coming up with very useful additions to the LEGO system and pulling off even crazier design angles than was ever possible before. For me, I feel like what sets Speed Champions apart in the LEGO portfolio is the fact that the builds always teach me something. No matter what the builds are, I feel like I genuinely learn and grow as a LEGO builder every time I build a Speed Champion set, because there's always something wild going on, some crazy part usages, some compact and unique angles, and it really does go crazy in terms of the amount of detail that you can find here. I'm honestly just genuinely very impressed by the work that the designers have done on the Speed Champions theme, and by far, they produce some of the best LEGO sets ever in the portfolio. Now this is such an excellent example of two very phenomenal Speed Champions cars. It was really hard for me to try to pick which Speed Champion set to include on this list, but I eventually ended up with this one, not only because the cars are so good, but because the price is so good too. $35 for two phenomenal cars is kind of ludicrous compared to a lot of other LEGO pricing strategies, and ludicrous in a good way. Whereas the previous single Batmobile we saw earlier on this list was $48, this is $35 for two similarly sized cars with way more detail and way more crazy parts usage. So I definitely gotta commend Speed Champions, give credit where credit is due, being one of LEGO's strongest product lines, and it really shows. But now, let's move on to my personal favorite LEGO set of the year, priced between $20 to $50. And at number one, y'all probably saw this coming, but this is, albeit a pretty simple set. It's actually a set that we've gotten in a different form multiple times in previous years, but this is set number 40649, the upscaled LEGO minifigure retailing for $50 US. Yes, we have gotten this before as a LEGO Harry Potter set, as well as a LEGO Pirate set for the LEGO house, but this is the perfect standard LEGO minifigure, right? Red torso, blue legs, simple smiley, blue hat. When you think LEGO minifigure, you think this, and I feel like this is the perfect set to include for $50 because it allows people to have a buildable template for a gigantic LEGO minifigure just like this, where you can basically use this standard template and create all sorts of your own minifigures using the exact same style. Now, do not let its simple seeming exterior fool you. This actually requires a lot of very interesting and complex mechanisms on the inside of the torso itself to allow the arms to rotate with friction. The same goes for the legs, utilizing a very unique array of different types of bionicle ball and socket joints to really allow you to move the legs with friction, and it's honestly a really impressive build, all things considered, the way they were able to fully capture the exact scale of the LEGO minifigure almost one-to-one by just having all sorts of crazy internal gearing, ball and socket joints, and different mechanisms factored on the inside of the build. Of course, one of my favorite parts is that in the hat you can see a standard size minifigure remote controlling him like he's being possessed by a regular style of minifigure, which is really, really funny. And this to me feels like the natural evolution of standard large-scale LEGO figures, and something I really hope LEGO will continue to do moving forwards in the future itself, because it's just so charming, it's so nice to look at, it's nice to display. Who doesn't love the upscaled LEGO minifigure? And allowing this to be sold at retail, not some exclusive, not some GWP, just anybody can go and buy it, was such a good idea. I feel like this truly is a great representation of an icon of LEGO, and I just love the way that they did this as a plain LEGO minifigure being fully brick built. And so that is my personal favorite LEGO set of 2023, between the price of $20 to $50, but definitely stay tuned, because next time we're going $50 to $100.
Alright, and with that, we have summed up my look at the best LEGO sets that came out this year between the $20 to $50 price range. Definitely stay tuned because there's so much more to come, and let me know in the comments if you feel like any sets were potentially robbed of being on the list. It was really hard trying to come up with this one because there were so many good items that came out this year. Really, really great year for LEGO. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe for even more LEGO news, reviews, discussion, and analyses coming away very soon. Thanks so much, and bye for now.